Good evening, Internet. I am sitting up this evening because I got my new indoor wheelchair today. It's a kind of a purpley burgundy. I'll see if I can do a little bit of a quick, just show it down there. I don't know how much of that you can see, but that's my new chair. It's a Quickie Life, I think. And yeah, it was ordered a number of months ago through my community OT, who was even a bit, I would say, positive today about me using it for dance in the future, which I certainly hope to do alongside my Motivation multi-sport chair, which I used for the last project I was involved in. And it's amazing what a good mood it has put me in, just to have this. I've been kind of hopping in and out of it all day, putting on the kettle, using tray to bring over my tea things and set them up beside the sofa. So yeah, really I've been moving around an awful lot more than I had been previously, and that's a good thing. I am feeling it in my back muscles, and I think my elbows are going to be especially sore tonight. But, it's all part of the recovery, and even being this upright, even being this vertical, even if I'm sitting, is an improvement in terms of my cardiovascular health. Yeah, it was I've lost track of what day it is now. Yeah. Yesterday I was trying to do another report, thinking I'd lost Sunday's report, and yeah, it was just, I was having a bad tech day, and a lot of that was to do with the interaction between assistive technology and the internet, and this assumption that once you've got the text-to-speech software, that magically anything on a computer or on a smartphone is open to you, and that's simply not the case. And in particular on Twitter, where there is a facility to tag an image with a description, although I think you have to go into settings and switch it on. I don't think it's available in all of their platforms. And people very often share an image that contains text, and no transcription, no description, no kind of indication of what that image contains. And it was particularly from a couple of other disability activists, and it was very much getting on top of me. Now, when I pointed it out, even though I was in a cross mood and I think I might have come across a bit sharp, the people that I tweeted responded really well and took it very nicely, and I'm thankful for that. And indeed, descriptions were then added, or a transcription was put up, but it does get exhausting when every single thing that you try and do, even and especially the things that you try and do in order to either unwind or reach out to people socially, that you've got work to do before you can do any of that. And it's not only the work involved and the emotional labour and the constant asking all the time. There's also a very real financial expenditure. I bought this iPhone. It was a reconstituted iPhone because I got my first iPhone as, very reluctantly, I have to say, as part of a contract with a supplier. And the phone lasted just long enough to be out of warranty before it just collapsed in on itself, which regularly happens as they bring out more newer, more expensive phones. And I was still bound into this contract, and it really, really annoyed me. So I decided I would buy my own handset, which cost good €600, I think, because I wanted particularly to have a lot of onboard memory so that I wouldn't feel restricted in the amount of books that I could download and carry around with me. Um, and yeah, it's a fantastic piece of kit. Uh, Loads of blind people and visually impaired people are particularly dependent upon an iPhone because it has a good built-in text-to-speech and other accessibility features. But it costs, and we are among the most impoverished demographics in society. Um, I'm watching things through my laptop and thinking, this laptop, which was reconditioned when I bought it a few years ago, it's getting slower and slower. So I'm going to need a new one of those, and it's going to need to be one that's good enough to run good assistive technology. And then I'm going to need to get updates on all my assistive technology. So that means JAWS, which is several hundred, a new version of Dragon, which is not so expensive, thankfully, and a third application that facilitates using JAWS and Dragon together, which I have yet to get. And that's not even considering the refreshable braille display that would actually facilitate my linguistic studies. That's in the thousands. Um, and yeah, it's very hard to do that on a couple of €100 a week. Um, I'm going to have to write out a big list of all of the tech things that I'm going to need. I'm going to need to cost them all, including warranties and software updates and all the rest of that, and then go to the credit union to get out a loan. There is zero funding for this in Ireland. There used to be, in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was sometimes at the end of the year a little magic bonus that I think came from the Dormant Accounts Fund that the NCBI, National Council for the Blind, would get, and they would offer it to people that they knew needed some technology, who, like myself, I'm not in full-time education, so I can't access it through a university. I'm not in full-time employment, so I can't get my employer to pay for it. You know, but that dried up with the economic downturn, and it was always an unknown quantity. It was always just like a lottery win, basically, a very small lottery win. And that's not been replaced. The NCBI, to my knowledge, does not have the funding specifically earmarked for assistive technologies. So while the technology is great when it works, there's a lot of pieces missing, from people putting up inaccessible formats. And that includes, by the way, I get print letters in tiny print from disability services regarding my disability, which includes my visual impairment. They can't even write in large print or email me, let alone send me something in Braille. The only thing I get in Braille is my electricity bill, which is all done online anyway. I don't have the wonderful Braille templates that have been brought in to help visually impaired people in voting. I made a video about this the last time with the presidential election, and it's happening again. This time is local election, European election, with a huge, massive, long ballot paper, and the referendums on the divorce legislation. I've got the postal ballots, but only today I managed to get a bit of time with one of my PAs to just read me out all of the names and the parties. I've made a note of them, Now I have to look them up and find out who they all are, because most of them haven't bothered sending out any actual election materials because they're focusing on the last few days before people go out to a polling booth. So I'm being sent ballot papers that I can't read, that I'm going to be filling out in a very sort of fingers crossed, I hope I've ticked the right box kind of a way. And yeah, and because my polling booth is my house, the government, in its infinite wisdom, has decided that they are not, in fact, obligated to make sure that I can vote and have a private ballot. So I suppose I'm largely talking about the visual impairment end of things today because I've just got a big boost to my mobility. And it's important, I think, to understand the impact of having different kinds of disabilities at the same time. You know, the biggest impact of the combination of disabilities is that I can't drive and will never drive, and that if I was to get a vehicle, which, you know, first of all, I would need to be able to pay somebody else to drive it, I would need to pay the insurance, it would need to be a really large vehicle because it would have to take my large power chair plus my dog plus me, obviously, plus a driver, and it'd be nice to actually, you know, stick a friend in the back once in a while, you know, so I could go somewhere with a friend. And I mean, the cost of that is astronomical from my point of view. It is so far beyond my reach. And without it, basically, the kind of work I can do is massively limited. I have to be able to either trundle in my power chair down to the local arts centre, which thankfully I do have some work that I can do there, or somewhere that I can get to on public transport, and that means just a train from Carrick and Shannon, and that only goes to Sligo and to Dublin. If it's, you know, down country roads away from a railway station, then I can't get there. Simple as. So that's today's meanderings. I did make a few phone calls this afternoon that I was hoping I would get the spoons to do this week, but I didn't get through to anyone, so I left messages. So same again tomorrow then. Yeah. In the meantime, thank you for all the sharing, the support. Please continue doing so. And please continue challenging the local election and European election candidates that you encounter, because this is not good enough. This is just, it's nowhere near good enough. And I'm frankly not surprised that the Irish government has not signed up to the optional protocol on the UNCRPD, which would mean that we could actually hold our government to account for breaches of our human rights, because they are pretty horrendous breaches. It amounts to, you know, illegal imprisonment for an awful lot of people. Never mind, you know, the lack of a private ballot or a right to education or to work or, you know, all those other kind of fundamental human rights. Housing, don't even start. So, yeah, keep pushing, keep asking. This is, you know, this is a very serious issue, and one that is usually behind closed doors. So, good night, Internet, wherever you are.